Hello, hello guys. My name is Amit. So today we are going to discuss about Facebook Messenger. So what is a Facebook Messenger system design basically? So Facebook Messenger is a messaging service with which users can send the text messages to each other through the Facebook Messenger actually. So it's a sort of messenger which you see when you log in onto the Facebook, and it's seen on the right hand side, something similar to the GChat. So in my previous video we have already discussed back of envelope calculation. So here we are going to discuss the HLD. So basically, okay, I'll just open this in a new page maybe. Just give me a second. Okay, so here whenever a user uh, enters something as facebook.com on his browser, so a DNS query is sent to the internet service provider, and the DNS-A record is fetched from the authoritative DNS server. So let us just look quickly that how it happens. So if we see how the name resolution happens, so and first of all why the name resolution should be there. So when we type facebook.com in the browser, our browser to send the packet onto the internet needs an IP address of facebook.com. So IP address would be required, and IP address would be uh, provided by the DNS query. So what is a DNS query? So forward lookup means hostname to IP address conversion. For example, let's see a browser here. It just want to get the IP address of something facebook.com. Let's consider here. So in that case, it creates a DNS query message with question name as facebook.com, and it sends to office server, office DNS server if we are sitting on the office, or if we are on the home, then it will be sent to the ISP, and ISP will search in its own local cache that it has IP to hostname mapping. If it doesn't have, it will send the DNS query to root name server. Then root name server will send the DNS query to TLD servers, that is which is handling this .com domain. So com domain. So now again, the one thing here is this DNS server is a recursive DNS server. That is, it will send the complete DNS response message to the client, not the intermediate results. So this TLD will send the IP address of authoritative DNS server to this recursive DNS server, and it will send this DNS query to the authoritative DNS server, and it will provide the DNS response and IP address of something Facebook or Yahoo.com. And finally, this recursive DNS server will send the DNS response. Again, one thing here is I'll just quickly mention that if we see why ISP is required, so actually ISP is also used for doing the NAT, that is network address traversal. For example, I'm sitting at my home. What is IP address of my laptop? So this is 192.168.3.1.3. So this is a local or private IP address. So whenever I want to send a packet to something facebook.com or yahoo.com, so at that time this conversion of private to public IP address is done by this ISP or maybe your office DNS server. Okay, so now we have got okay, so we have got the IP address from DNS server. So this browser will send the HTTP connection, HTTPS message uh, to this ISP using IP address. So first of all, it will get the IP address using DNS, then it will send HTTPS GET request to the ISP, that is forward proxy. So here, now what is a forward proxy? I'll just quickly cover here. So forward proxy is a computer sitting in front of the user computers, and why forward and using the forward proxy, computers are connected to internet. So in our case, ISP is our forward proxy, or even the office firewall is our forward proxy that is used for applying the restrictions. For example, limited access to internet, or maybe protect identity online, because we do not want all the public IPs to be provided to the internal user computers. So that's why forward proxy or ISP or a NAT server is provided. Okay, so we have given the facebook.com homepage request to ISP. ISP forwards it to CDN. CDN provides the homepage back to the user. Now, what is CDN? Content Delivery Network. This is also a very important node. So CDN is a web hosting service. This is a local server which lies near to the ISPs or maybe the users. So the purpose of CDN is actually to store the web contents or web documents which are, like for example, the home page. It contains images or videos which often do not change, often. So these can be cached. So the benefit of the CDN is that every time the browser queries for the home page, it doesn't have to go to the application server or the data center where the actual facebook.com web server or the application server is running. So home page can be rendered using the CDN only. So now in this case, we can use Amazon CDN, that is CloudFront here. On CDN, we can use the uh, like Amazon provided nodes, for example, WAF and Shield for the security. We can use Amazon S3 Auth for authentication of the server, authentication of the client, because client will provide the username and password here. S3 Auth can do that. And for fast response, we can just do a AWS Lambda here. So now the user gets the home page. User 1 sends hi uh, to the user 2, for example. So what will be the packet format? For example, so application packet, application data will be hi, source will be user 1 and destination will be user 2, let's suppose. So now in this case, the user has sent hi and HTTPS has opened a WebSocket. So we'll just discuss what's the WebSocket here. Maybe maybe sometime later. So let's just move ahead with the other components. So okay, let me just enlarge it. So now using internet routers, using any routing protocol like maybe OSPF, the packet reaches this data center. So there will be a data center for Facebook. On the data center there will be a API gateway which will convert the packet, which, so this API gateway is also an AWS component. Then there will be a SSL terminator. So SSL terminator work is to convert the HTTPS traffic to HTTP. So there will be it will just decrypt the packet, remove the header, remove encryption, provide HTTP stream to the load balancer. Now we can use Amazon ELB, Elastic Load Balancer here. So it now at step 6, it will just select the web server. This load balancer will select this web server or app server based on the round robin scheduling. Okay, so load balancer and what other load balancing like scheduling policies can be used? So load balancers can use round robin, which it will send one request after other. So there can be other connection policy like least connection, send request to server with lowest number of active connections. Then it can be least time, that is the server having, which shows the least time in RTT, that is fastest response. Then it can hash, and some other techniques are there as well. Any of the technique load balancer can deploy using based on the use case. After that, load balancer selects the application server. Application server will be running on the AWS. It will be running on EC2 containerized mode, or containerized on containers. Actually, it will be controlled by Kubernetes. For if the load increases, then more containers will be forked. So we'll discuss the Kubernetes design in some other video maybe. At the data center, the security can be, so we can use the elastic cache here on the application server. So for example, before going on to the database server, we can deploy a cache here in between. It can be elastic cache or it can be memcached. Then we have to use the ECS container, which can be auto scaler as provided by AWS, and it can just fork new containers whenever new connection comes in. Okay, so we're at step 7. So now uh, we have 3 works here in Facebook. So just a second, I'm on this. So we have on Facebook Messenger, we are on step 7 now. User 1 will keep the connection open with the server to receive the ACK. Okay, and user 1. So okay, so now in this case app server will send ACK, that is we see a single tick to the user. It can be sent with a zookeeper to the server, to the user, and app server or the chat server will now select the database updater where the actual user message will be stored, message and the timestamp. So now in this case we'll have a MOM in between. This application server, using its internal logic, will find which database up. So now again I'll just scroll it here. So for example, this is data center 1, this is data center 6. Application server is running data center 1, updater or databases are in some other data center. So now application server will find it with its internal logic that the information or the message for this particular user is stored in which database, and it will just push the message and the send, like source, destination, message, timestamp, everything on this Amazon SQS. So Amazon SQS is a message oriented middleware. So what it is, let's just see. So let me just see it here. I'm on. Okay, so message oriented middleware, these are the big commercial implementations of message queues which provides high availability. These, so for example, so if we see a queue, in queue we can just push the element at back and element will be popped from front, so it will be first in first out. But instead of a simple queue, this MOM is a bigger architecture which works on a publisher subscriber model. So this database updater will be a subscriber of this MOM, this will be a publisher. So whenever this will publish an event onto this SQS, the subscriber will get the notification out of it. So it works on publisher subscriber model. So for example, good or maybe popular MOMs are IBM Message Queue, Apache Kafka, Amazon SQS, which will be using here. So here are some comparisons, like Amazon SQS is a single consumer type, so consumer will be single. Kafka can have different consumers. So on-stream data analytics is not there, while Kafka have on-stream data analytics. Okay. So now we found the database updater. Now message would be sent onto a NoSQL database. We can use HBase here. Why HBase? We'll just discuss that. And the metadata for this message will be sent to the metadata server. Now I have just deployed a cache in between the database updater. So this is the database front end, and this is actual database, and this is the application server. So this can be memcached here. So this will be a write through cache. Whenever we are writing a message onto the database, it will just be passed through the cache. So far first it will be written to cache, and then it will be written back here. We can deploy different other caching schemes as well, but this diagram shows it's a write through cache. So at step 10, okay, database updater gets notification and updates database here. Okay, and pushes the message on the MOM. Okay, so now in the database design we are using NoSQL H-based database, and we are not using SQL database. So why we are not using SQL database? Because SQL is not good fit for the small and frequent updates. For example, every user can just send a simple hi, so in that case it will be a very small message, and RDMS, that is the SQL database, is not good for it, because it need to read the entire row or write the entire row, which is a heavy operation. So NoSQL database can store multiple values against one key. And why HBase? Because HBase does not writes small chunks but writes all data at once. So it's something sort of a cache. It just stores the data onto a cache and then writes all the data at once. Okay, so we'll be storing metadata here on the SQL database, and NoSQL database will be storing on the HBase. The actual message content will be stored here. Okay, so uh, okay, so now Amazon and this database updater, after sending the message on to this after writing the message onto this NoSQL database and metadata onto this metadata server, will update the SQS queue, and the receiver or the subscriber will be a fetcher service here. So what will this fetcher service will be doing here? So fetcher service will receive the notification and get the message from the database. So now fetcher service receives a notification about the user ID, for example user 1 and timestamp 1, and it will fetch the messages which are written by user ID 1 using the metadata server. Now metadata server it will be a SQL database, so it will contain rows. It will have user ID, it will have timestamp, then it will have the destination user ID, and it will have some other fields. So fetcher service will fetch the data actual message from this NoSQL HBase server using the data tables or the metadata uh, database. So now the subscriber of SQL receives the notification, fetches pull message from source user 1 to destination user 2. Now the actual logic of sending would be done by the fan out message service. So it gets the connection information from the application database and will send the message. So now fan out service will receive the notification and will send the message to user 2. Now again, before sending the message, we'll be sending using the SSL encryptor. So here this arrow goes into the SSL encryptor. It encrypts the message from HTTP. So this all will be HTTP. It will go through HTTPS. Then it will go to the friend of user 1, which is user 2. So now the user 2 will read the message, and we have just shown one tick here. Now 2 ticks has to be shown. So it sends ACK. So this ACK is placed actually on the Amazon SQS, and this again goes through the complete logic of application server load balancer. I've just skipped it for brevity. And then there will be a fan out ACK service which will send ACK to the user 1 using the same logic by getting information of user 1 from the connection database and send it back. Right, so this will be the complete design here basically. So now how the chat messages would be stored on the database, we can use sharding here. So what is the concept of sharding? So for example in sharding we have the distributed databases. For example, all information for user A to G will be stored on database 1, all information from user F to L will be stored on database 2, then for user 3 will be stored on for M to T will be stored on database 3, and so on, right? So in this case we can use sharding technique here. So I think that's pretty much about it. And yeah, we just forgot to discuss about the WebSockets, because I initially mentioned that we'll be using WebSockets. So there are three or four kinds of methods for connection from a web server to a web client. So first is a normal pooling or AJAX pooling or a pull method, which doesn't keeps any connections open. For example, I'll say HTTP 1.1, which doesn't just sends the message, just sends the message, closes the connection, call the TCP close, and then again establishes a new connection whenever I want to send a second message. So this leads to a lot of latency on network, because every time we want to set up a connection, three-way handshake is needed, then ACK is needed, so that's a lot of unnecessary traffic. Then there is a method of long pooling. So in long pooling, server keeps the connection open, but this is not bidirectional. That's important. That server cannot initiate a connection in long polling. So this is a push method rather. So here, for example, a web client does a three-way handshake with a web server, TCP three-way handshake. So socket is open for time X. It just do HTTP get, then it does HTTP get, and it just gives the page one, and then whenever timer expired, it just closes the connection. So now, how WebSockets are different? So WebSockets, first of all, is a full bidirectional. It means that the web server and web client anyone can send the connection, and any WebSocket can do TCP connect and start sending the data. So this is a full duplex connection. This is an enhanced version of HTTP, can work over TCP. So flow is something like this, that web client opens a WebSocket handshake with a web server. This is called a WebSocket handshake. Then client asks for from the server page one, so it will just ask page one from the server. Server will send back the page one and closes the connection. Now client asks page 4 from the server. So if the data is not available on the server, unlike long pooling, server does not keep the connection open, rather it closes it. Now when the data becomes available on the server, it just creates a WebSocket handshake, WebSocket connection, and sends data back to the server. So advantages of WebSockets here is it doesn't keep the open descriptors. So now if so for example, if web server is having thousands of connections, so sometimes you may have seen that web server runs out of the socket descriptors, error message we see, but in this case it will not happen. And also, unlike the long pooling, server does not send the empty messages. For example, that the data is not there, so server sends the empty message back to the client, and which consumes a lot of bandwidth. So that's how uh, this will work, right? So yeah, guys, thanks a lot um, for the video. Thanks a lot for listening to the video. And this was Facebook Messenger. Uh, so have a good day. Bye.